Today is March the 22nd. It is Saturday. We are in the local vigilance area. I had debated whether to go to Vermont or not today. They had a little bit of snow last night, and having driven over a particular mountain in uncertain conditions, I decided we're going to wait that out as a bug tries to fly up my nose. Thanks for that there, Moth Boy. Anyway, we're here today. We're going to have a look around, enjoy a warmer day. It's actually quite nice today in the upper 50s, and hopefully the trend will hold. I say that because down here in southern New England, every now and then, every other year or so, you always have that one little bitch of a storm that rolls in way later than it should be and gives you a little taste of winter one last time, after everything's already been budding, just to basically have Father Winter take a poo on everything that you're looking forward to. Life in New England and all that. So we're going to get going. We're going to have a we're going to have a look around and some commentary on some woodsy related things, not necessarily Bigfoot related. But we'll go from there and see what else comes to mind. So come on along and we'll see what we do. You know the drill, and we'll see what we find. Thanks. Bye. And we're back, and we're at the beaver pond I like to start out at usually, and I was kind of hoping you might have some life, some signs of life here, because last time I was here and you didn't have ice all here, you had a bunch of otters playing around, which is pretty cool. First time I've seen them in the area. Not that I don't think they're around, it's just the first time I've seen them here. There's also a bobcat in the area I've never seen either, but you see a sign at least in the winter. Anyway, first subject up for bids, are up for discussion today. I know I've hit this before this time of year, but I have a special loathing in my heart for a certain particular use of a certain particular group of people that use the woods alongside people in the winter, and that is the ATVer crowd. You people have no fucking consideration for anyone else using the trail system, and you destroy the fucking conditions, and you take a shit on everybody else's experience out here, and for that you should be outlawed, banned, and frankly you should kiss my ass. And I know that somewhere out there there's an ATVer that wants to whine and say, well, where are we supposed to go? Hell, I don't care. 4 years ago, I was on a trail probably about 3 miles to the direct west of here. And had I not heard them coming, a bunch of illegal ATVers, because there is a big red sign on the front of the fucking trail system that says no vehicles. Because it's a wildlife management area, and you can't manage the wildlife if they're constantly being disturbed by dickheads on freaking ATVs. Like the asshole local to the neighborhood, who basically, had I not seen or heard him coming around a blind corner, this guy would have plowed right into me and run me flat right into the mud, probably killing me. So before anyone wants to jump into the comments and defend these shitheads, and they are shitheads and maggots and other assholes that need to be beaten by, well, pick the biggest stick here you can find and just chase them down the trail as they scream in pain, and you whack them across the head with it till they bleed out. Not that I have a strong opinion about that, but the fact of the matter is, before you fucking defend these shitheads, yeah, I almost got hit and killed by one of these idiots. So fuck you if you don't like it, if you're one of them, and fuck you twice if you're one of them. You ruin it for everyone else. You don't have any right to be out here. If the sign says don't be here, fuck you, don't be here. If I see you out here and I see you doing like the two shitheads last week, I'm going to turn you in. Proudly sorry, not sorry. Now, I'm going to get off that soapbox, because if not, given some recent things in the news, I'm going to go into politics, and I've said every other week, I will not be forced into doing politics on my channel, because that just segues too much into a different direction, and we're not going to do that. Simply put, I touch into other side subjects, but they always pertain to Bigfoot. This politics, no. So let's see. I have to actually look around and see if there's anything going on. Again, upcoming in a few, well, June, so what are we looking at? Like 2 months, you have the Cobble Mountain Critter Festival, which is not in Cobble Mountain. It's in a different area of Vermont, a little west of there, but not Vermont, Massachusetts. But I do plan to go there. This is like the one time I'm going to break my conference rule, because I don't really think it's a conference as much as just like a festival. And it's a day out, and it's being presented in a manner where you don't have... It's like local people that I know. So I'm going there to show some support to the local crowd. So there's an element of that. And probably catch up with some people that I know of in the area I've never met directly. We know we know each other. We know who we are, but it'd be kind of nice to meet them face to face. And you have people that I've known and not seen in a while. So some I don't need to see, but, you know, the good with the bad. The one person I'm thinking of, I don't think is directly involved, at least as far as I know, with the events. So that's kind of a moot point. Other people that are, you don't have to talk to the people that you don't want to, and they don't have to talk to you either. A lot of today, if there's not a lot going on other than announcing the festival again, is my listening in, because in between the wind bursts, there's at least 2 politeated woodpeckers out here, I heard. And I've heard other signs of animal activity too, so I'm going to listen in on that note. And go from there. There are stuff out here. And because there is... It's either 3 weeks or a month ago I posted the trackway when you still had snow on the ground. Kind of have my eyes and ears peeled on the one chance that this was not a hoax, but given the small number of tracks in a fairly hunter populated area anyway, and the fact they looked like stompers, my gut feeling still says if it was anything, it was probably a hoax, but or an attempt at one, not a good one, but you never know, because I've had a couple of reports given my way where you started to, your initial instinct was whoever's telling this story is full of shit. Ironically, one of them did happen near Cobble Mountain back in the 90s, and there were some very healthy embellishments to the person's story. And if I ever get off my ass and I freaking publish the Nezra casebook, as I do have possession right now, I'm sorry, it's going to be the Nezin casebook because Nezra abandoned the database for incidents. And that's on them. That's another matter. That's a discussion for another time. It is in there, and basically the person had made some healthy embellishments. But one day, years later, I found myself in that neck of the woods. I remembered the story. Because it wasn't that far out of mind, I'm like, let's go have a look for ourselves. And although a lot of the embellishments were exactly that, embellishments, there was a lot of grain of truth where you could see what he was getting at. A lot that my skepticism was not taken away as much, but it was softened quite a bit, if I'm being blunt. So even if a story sounds completely outlandish, because my second run-in with a family unit of these things in Vermont from 2018 probably would sound kind of outlandish too, unfortunately it happened. It was a double sighting. I was tracked / escorted for a while, and then I got a bluff charge on the way out for my trouble. And I have since kind of, through follow-up, kind of gotten my theory as to why that happened, and they were so, not so much elusive as territorially aggressive. The reason I say that is if they were actually hunting people and doing the kind of things that Paulides tries to attribute through his 411 stuff, that would be one day when I wouldn't be here now, if I'm being blunt, because they had the opportunity. The opportunity to remove me from the gene pool was there. I was there by myself, and if they had decided to do so, some things I saw that day leave me very convinced that I would have had no chance of escape or fending it off, or even in some degree, or even to some degree, even knowing that it was coming. You would have never saw them coming. I saw one particular mental image is coming into my head where I saw one of them move through stuff thicker than this with a rate of speed and a really puzzling lack of noise. leaving you scratching your head. But the thing is, if they were doing that on an approach through these trees to get you, you honestly would have no chance. I mean, you liken this to you are walking through a vast grassland way away from your car and you happen upon a grizzly bear and he perks up. In that moment, that grizzly bear is deciding whether or not he wants you for lunch or not. And you know what the matter of that is? As much as humans have been freaking conditioned to think that we are the masters of the world, in that moment, you have no fucking say in the matter of whether he's going to eat you or not. If he decides he's taking you, you're fucked. Now, move that into the water. You're swimming freely like you see some people do now with great white sharks. Typically, your attack on a human by a great white is somebody who is attacked because the great white doesn't really know what you are. And unfortunately for us, they tend to freaking investigate with their big gaping mouths full of big sharp teeth. And most great white bites are investigatory bites. And when they realize that you're not human, that you're not a seal, and that freaking wetsuits taste like shit, they usually leave you there. But by then, they've bitten your leg clean off and you bleed out in the middle of the ocean. But by that same token of logic, you're swimming with a great white, and he decides he wants to see what you taste like. You really have no say in the matter. You're talking about a potential of like a 20-foot long fishy, and he's way more suited to that environment than you are. And if he wants to see what you taste like, you're done. And that's the end of it. And since I'm going to go down this rabbit hole a little bit further, I have a couple of other things, and this is kind of on that same tangent, but I am admittedly tangenting. Here's weird animal interactions with humans. On an equal level, and all of these are going to be marine animals, because that's what's in my head right now. You have the example of killer whales, aka orcas, interacting with people. These things have been discovered hunting, killing, eating great white sharks. These are the apex alpha fucking badass fucking predators of the ocean. No if, no and, no but about it. There's nothing out there that's going to take them per se, although humpback whales do fucking stand up to them. Humpback whales are not per se predators. I'll handle them in a minute because they are relevant to the discussion I'm having. But killer whales in the wild, not like the stuff that's happened at aquariums where you have captivity factored into a inherently social animal, because orcas are a very social animal. There is, to my knowledge, no record existing of an orca killing a human, attacking and killing a human in the wild under predation or any other circumstances. And there's plenty of footage out there online of people freely swimming in the ocean and orcas coming right up to them and checking them out to see what's going on. Could they grab them and take them under? Yeah, no problem. They don't. Simply put, they just don't. They have attacked boats because they could. They see us, they don't. There's two kids rowing a rowboat out in the middle of the ocean, and two orcas come by to check them out. They could flip them and kill them and eat them. Do they? No. Come by to say hello and check them out. You've got guys on sailboards out in the middle of nowhere completely fucked, and there's an orca swimming under them checking them out. Same thing. Could flip them and eat them. Do they? No. Coming over to say hi and see what you're doing. And it's, some people explain it as we're simply not on their menu. I personally have this thought that higher level intelligent animals recognize intelligence in other animals on a like basis. And once you recognize that inherent intelligence, the relationship does in fact change. They're not prone to want to kill and eat you as much as they want to, like, okay, so what makes you tick? Curiosity becomes the thing. And yes, you can be harmed, because I also know of a person who was harmed by pilot whales, which are a relatively close relative to orcas. But what happened was not an act of predation. It was playful curiosity. They didn't realize that when you grab a person by the leg and playfully take them down really quick, about 20 meters, their eardrums blow out. And unfortunately, the diver, the woman, did freaking have her eardrums blow out and was decently injured, but the whole thing was not intentional. That's the danger of playing with an animal that is probably easily 5-6 times your size and God knows how much stronger than you are. The other scary one are leopard seals. These are big predatory seals. And there is an example, at least one, of where a person was killed in the Antarctic by an overly aggressive leopard seal. But you have as many examples of them coming up and trying to offer a diver food, which leads most of the people that are aware of the girl that got killed by the seal. It wasn't per se an act of predation. It was an act of the seal being overly curious and then the person handling it poorly, perhaps. And then things turned ugly because a lot of your cougar attacks, at least for a period of time, were from escaped. They were like exotic pets that were released back in the wild. The problem being the difference between that cougar and a wild cougar is going to be a lot more weary. These saw people and they didn't have any fear. They're like, hey, let's play. The problem is the hiker in question doesn't realize that a big freaking predatory cat is just playing. They start to panic and freak out, and then things escalate, and that's when things turn bad. Leopard seals, though, like I said, the other example of that is just they come up and they recognize an element of intelligence and they're trying to offer you food and shit. There's other kinds of, it's not dolphins. There's like some other kind of whale that did that kind of thing too. But the other weird one, because I mentioned humpbacks, there are a couple of documented cases where people were fucking briefly swallowed by humpback whales. Not on purpose. They come up, hello? They come up in a straight line and their mouths are wide open and I think they close their eyes and they're just grabbing as much plankton as they can. So if you're in the line of fire, that mouth is big enough to take a human being-sized creature in, and on a couple of occasions they have. I've also seen a few where you have people out there on surfboards or kayaks and they get too close to the humpbacks and you're putting yourselves in the line of fire too. One girl actually getting flipped out of her kayak by that exact thing. She didn't get swallowed, neither did the boat, but oops. But there was a guy in Massachusetts that was clam diving or something, and he claims he got taken in. He had a brief encounter with the inside of a mouth when he was playing Jonah for a minute, and then the whale inadvertently, very quickly realized it was a mistake and spat him out, but not before he got all banged up. The reason for that, basically being a baleen type whale, has a tiny little swallowing hole. And a tiny little throat, and humans don't fit. So it's like trying to take in a softball, trying to swallow it, and then suddenly you realize that's not going to work and you spit it out. And that's what happened. So nobody believed this guy until you actually had a photo from a guy in South Africa having the same exact thing happening. The problem is what the photo shows is this guy's right leg hanging out of the whale's mouth literally as it's happening. He's inside the mouth and the whale does spit him out for the same reason, but the guy is in that moment probably shitting for his life because he's inside the whale's mouth and all you see is darkness, and you realize that something really big is taking you in and is about to freaking swallow you as far as you know. And that's terrifying. The fear of being eaten by a wild animal is one of the primordial fears of human beings from now back to like caveman days. And that is terrifying. But the thing is, it also is an example of where the whole thing was a mistake on the part. Because again, big whales like this, they come right up and they open their mouths and they're not looking. They literally don't look when they do this. And a lot of, like for the girl in the kayak that got flipped, that was completely her fault because you're getting too close to a big animal that's not there to see you and interact with you. They're looking for lunch. And you're wanting to interact with them, but you're putting yourself in the middle of their salad bar while they're doing this. So if harm comes to you, you did that because you got too close to that. And these are examples of my tangent that I'm now wrapping up. But as far as other animals recognizing intelligence in other animals, another example, interestingly enough, octopi recognize that in humans, and they don't come up to predate. They come up and they're just like, they want to check you out because they're curious what makes you tick. It's actually probably would be a pretty cool thing, because I saw one where the ones on the West Coast, the giant octopus, which get like bigger than people. And if this thing wanted to wrap around you and drag you down for lunch, again, here's another example where you lose. There's no version of that where you win. But that's not what they want. They came over, they kind of like gave a little bit of a, they don't wrap around and like give you the squeeze of a lifetime, but they kind of come over and they kind of like, they check you out, and once they're good, they kind of say peace and they're off on their way. But they don't recognize you, but they recognize some kind of pattern of intelligence, and that's enough to strike them, to intrigue them to come over and check you out and say hello. That's kind of cool. Although because I am not a scuba diver of any kind, if I were to be approached by a large marine animal doing that, I would probably shit my pants. I will not. And even if I understood the context of the interaction, I would still shit my pants, because it's a big freaking creature I've never seen up close before, and yikes. You have, I'm thinking of another one. There's a video where there's a guy way down to the bottom of the ocean, and he is approached face to face, like from me to this tree, with a right whale, which is basically like a 50-foot long animal. And he just comes over to look at him and say hi. And I mean, the whale doesn't mean him any harm. And if I was in that situation and I knew that he meant me no harm, I'm still terrified, because that thing is huge. It's just a natural reaction to that. But you get used to animals, because from my own personal experience, I've had encounters with black bears, which is probably the biggest quasi-dangerous animal you're going to run into with any regularity in this neck of the woods. And when I say that, I mean from here to that tree or here to that tree. I have had a run-in with a black bear where I came around the corner and we were mutually surprised, and that's a potentially dicey situation from me to him. And after he thought about it for a second, he ran. And if you don't do anything aggressive to alarm or piss off the bear at that point, 9 times out of 10, that's what happened. I've come to be a lot less afraid of black bears as a result. Not to say I don't sweat them. It's more like a matter of you respect them. And so if I saw one, as an example, walking over there through there, and he looks over, right, what you do is you stop. You don't run, you don't back up, you just stop and you let him think, what does he want to do? Because 9 times out of 10, what he's going to do, keep walking that way and just let him do it. Worst case scenario, he goes that way, you go that way. And you're fine. And so is he. No harm, no foul, 2 ships passing in the night. And that's, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's cool to see a bear like that, but there's an etiquette to it, if you get my meaning. Now, if I was hiking in grizzly country, that's a whole different matter, because a grizzly's an entirely different animal. And they are predatory, they're 9 times more likely to freaking attack a human than a bear. Most of your run-ins with black bears are where it's like that. It's the person gets a little too friendly or a little too close to the bear, and the bear doesn't react well. But you let the bear leave, the bear is probably going to leave. You walk, I mean, I've had the one that I have a video of in one of my 2016 videos. There's a black bear walking across a road that's about a mile and a half that way. And he knew I was there long before I knew he was there. And he kept walking parallel to me because, honestly, he knew I was there. He didn't care. He did not care. He was not really thrilled. He wasn't really worried about it. Fairly decent sized male. And he, I was hoping I could get ahead of him so I didn't have to like deal with him between me and my car. That was a psychological thing on my part. Didn't work. He pops out in front of me, so I did exactly what I just described. I stopped. He stopped. He looked at me. I looked at him. He kept going and crossed the road and walked into maybe where that rock is over there and started digging into a dead log looking for beetles or grubs or whatever he was looking for. And at that point, I resolved I was basically good, and I walked by him at the same distance, and at no point did he look up or even care I was there. And I walked to my car, and there was no further incident. And 9 times out of 10, those kind of interactions with a completely wild black bear are perfectly normal, because as they get used to you, unfortunately, familiarity can breed contempt, or in this case, a strong sense of apathy. He knew I was there. He just wasn't worried about it. So he left me alone. I left him alone, and that's fine. And I'm sure I've had plenty of other interactions, especially in Vermont, where the undergrowth, say mid-June, when it's starting to thicken and fill out, you hear things you just kind of slowly meandering through the woods or through the undergrowth. That's not a deer, that's a bear. He knows you're there. Keep walking. If he doesn't pop out to see you, he knows you're there. He's just doing his thing, and let him do it. In the last 4 years, I can distinctly remember easily 5 or 6 encounters like that I have no doubt were a bear. Like in undergrowth over there, you hear him stop, make some noise. If he doesn't run off, he's in there, he's involved in something. He knows you're here. If he doesn't leave, he's aware of you, but he didn't come over to check you. He's fine. Leave him alone. If you're that worried about it, go back the way you came, and he's probably not following you because he's probably looking for food. And if he doesn't smell food on you, he doesn't care about you, he doesn't want to be bothered with you, leave him alone. You save yourself grief. And that is where I'm going to wrap up this little story, is tangent. But my point being, if the 2 that I encountered in that day were going to want to take me out in that same venue of being like that much more in mastery of their environment than I was, I wouldn't be here now. And the interaction was fairly aggressive. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say that was a solid 7 in aggression. And I left because I had genuine concern. No, and I left the area, let me be clear, that day, mainly from genuine concern for my safety, because much as people have described the aggressive interactions with larger primates, you have posturing. Posturing leads to this and that, and then bluff charges. And if you're completely fucking stupid and you finally they can't get it through to you to get the hell out of there by way of a bluff charge, then yes, they will attack you. Maybe not fatally. I mean, it depends on what kind of animal you're dealing with. If you're dealing with gorillas, you're probably got to get slapped around or given the freaking, or they'll knock you around. Gorillas are not as aggressive as some others. Orangutan don't have the reputation for it, but I've seen a couple of clips where people got a little too cocky, and the orangutan shows that, yes, they're bigger and stronger, and they put you back in your place. One woman kind of was held captive by a female orangutan for a bit because she got a little too, and she was trying to pull away, and the orangutan's like, I'll let you go when I'm ready. She's lucky, the girl's lucky the orangutan didn't break her hand, because she's like, he came close to breaking my hand. I thought he was going to break my wrist. Don't funk with apes. They're stronger than you are. And I'm kind of deliberately saving chimps for the last, because chimps they'll actually kill you and eat you. And they are pack hunters. They're not programmed to chase and hunt and prey on humans, but they're definitely fucking capable of it. And I have no intention of ever going anywhere where I'm going to encounter chimps in the wild, because that's just too risky. To Jane Goodall, a researcher who did that, for whom I have the utmost of respect. Don't get me wrong. Reading the things that she wrote about her studies is fascinating, but I'm not going to do that. I know too much about those animals and their baser nature that I just don't want to put myself in that situation. One of the greatest survival strategies out there is 2 simple words. Don't go. You're going to take your lifelong cruise and you want to go through the lovely scenic shore, by the lovely scenic shores of Somalia. And you know there's pirates there. Here's a thought, don't go. I'm going to stop right there because I'm heading towards political shit again. And because I'm rambling a little bit more than I wanted to, I'm going to take a break. Like I said, I'm going to look for some Bigfoot stuff while I still have a signal and see if there's anything that comes to mind that I wasn't aware of. I didn't see anything this morning, but I didn't look that diligently, so I'm going to do that and take a slight break while I look around, see if there's any indents. Last week I was able to see indents in the leaf litter, so while the ground is still soft from relative amounts of moisture on it, I'm going to look and see if I find anything there too, because I do hear signs of animals around. Not necessarily a big hairy monkey man, but a couple of weeks ago when I found the moose tracks that I had on the video, I heard something coming through here, and because the snow is all still crunchy, I mean, there's no stealth for anybody. I heard something crunching. I stopped, and I realized that the crunching was not in sync with my own steps, and suddenly you realize you're not alone. Who's out here with you? What's out here with you? You kind of want to know. And I didn't see the deer in direct proximity, but he was probably about 100 yards from me the whole time, and walking kind of parallel to where I was. And when I finally got there, I found his tracks. And it's not deer season yet, but any hunter would have probably liked to have seen him. He looked like he was a decent-sized buck. Probably just walking through and seeing what there was to eat and then going off that way. But I thought for a minute it might have been the moose, and a moose is they're not dangerous, but you want to know where they are, because they can hear you, they can smell you, but their eyesight sucks. So let's put it this way. The potential for a misunderstanding it's large enough that you want to know where they are. Are they inherently dangerous by intent? No, but misunderstandings can happen. Misunderstandings like the pilot whale, and the diver resulted in her having her eardrums pop, and she had significant injury. They actually had to medevac her to the boat and get her out of there from WAC. It was that bad. Did the whale mean her any harm? No, but that's why you don't get too friendly with animals of that nature, because they were curious and she paid for it. But I'm going to go on I'm going to take a segment break and see what else is going on and kind of focus in on the woods more than yap. So let's do that. We'll be back in a bit. As I look around, I don't really find anything overly interesting. The one thing I will say on the way out is, as things get warmer, and I'll have to do this myself, is check yourself if you're out off trail or even if you're on trail, especially if you have a dog with you at the time, for our seasonal bane of this time of year being ticks and related things, deer heads as well, which thankfully I haven't seen as of yet. Maybe it's still just cold enough at night to keep them at bay for a few more weeks, but we'll see. As I look myself over. Beyond that, it's kind of quiet, and I did look for any Bigfoot related stuff. There's not really anything really earth-shattering going on. No hoax. I mean, there's so many hoaxes of the weeks, though, in people rehashing pareidolia or coming up with their own BS or AI generated nonsense, that it's kind of pointing out this week's latest is kind of a moot point, because there's just that much of it. So I'm going to call this one here, barring meeting the big guy on the way out and having him shake my hand, and we'll call it a day, just because I'd rather just be out here and enjoy the weather and such, and not talking to the camera anymore, because I'm out of material, I guess. So enjoy the nice piney goodness of the wind knocking all the stuff down, and I will catch you next time. Like, subscribe, comment, tell me what I'm doing wrong or something new you'd like to see me try, because in the next 2 weeks or so, maybe next week, but depending on weather, I am going to make it up to Vermont and do at least a first recon run around up there, which will change the pace and the setting and all that. And I do look forward to that, to change the pace. So that's what's on the agenda coming up, and we will catch you next time. Bye.